In the dim light of my cluttered studio, the invitation arrived on crisp University of Toronto letterhead, a harbinger of something enigmatic. It was a summons not for a musician, but for an audio restoration specialist. Me, Alara Vance. A researcher named Alistair Croft had died unexpectedly while recording the folk hymns of the Stillwater Brethren in the isolated enclave of Dagger Falls, Newfoundland. His last project left behind a collection of corrupted recordings, sonic wreckage waiting to be salvaged. The promise of good pay and an intriguing mystery drew me in like the moon lures the tide. As a forensic audio engineer, I was accustomed to working with police evidence and historical wax cylinders. But this felt different. The allure of piecing together not just melodies, but an entire culture was irresistible. Croft's hard drives arrived, heavy with potential and the weight of unfulfilled dreams. Initial playback was disheartening, a cacophony of muffled tones and distorted voices. Croft's notes hinted at a peculiar community that believed in achieving grace through the great quietude, a state of perfect silence. Their hymns were not meant for performance. They were sacred acts of devotion, sung only once to align one's soul with divine stillness. With each fragment I cleaned and restored, I felt both a creeping unease and a deepening fascination. Hours turned into days as I delved deeper into the digital chaos. My breakthrough came with a track labeled Choir Attic B Processional.wav. The dissonant harmonies gradually untangled, revealing a dialect so archaic that it felt like an echo from another world, hauntingly beautiful and unresolved. But as I immersed myself in their sound, I began to feel an unsettling pressure behind my eyes and a deep sense of loneliness that didn't belong to me. I dismissed it, attributing it to the intensity of the work, yet it gnawed at me like a whisper in the dark. Then, the moment I isolated a single voice, a trembling soprano of a young woman, everything shifted. When her ethereal plea, "And lay my clamor down," emerged from the chaos, the world around me fell silent. For 3 precious seconds, I was enveloped in a deep, consuming void, but when sound rushed back in, it left me cold and nauseous. Spurred by curiosity and dread, I continued my work. Croft had written about the Brethren's belief that true hymns left a blessed echo, a calming resonance that could hush the tumult of existence. What if their faith had woven a psychic dampening into the very fabric of the recordings? As I ventured further, I discovered the voice of an elder, a gravelly, haunting timbre that sang a dirge for the unquiet dead. As I cleaned this track, the temperature in my studio plummeted, my breath turning to fog, and I was struck with an eerie sensation that the surroundings were not just quieting, but were being drawn into the song's depths. The audio waveforms on my screen distorted in bizarre patterns. It was as if the sound itself was being absorbed into an unseen abyss. That night, I dreamt of Dagger Falls, feeling the scratch of coarse wool against my skin and the hard wood beneath me, consumed by the longing for the silence their hymns promised, a silence that receded just as I reached for it. I awoke to find my apartment immersed in an unnatural quiet. The alarm clock, the hum of the fridge, even the ticking clock, all silenced for a full minute before the cacophony of life returned. The pull to Dagger Falls became irresistible. Using Croft's notes, I navigated to the forlorn landscape of Dagger Falls, where abandoned saltbox houses clung to the cliffs, desperate against the relentless sea. It was a graveyard of sound and memory, the silence palpable, the air thick with history. Inside the meeting house, I felt the weight of absence in the stale air. The only remnant of life was Croft's secondary recorder, its microphone still poised to capture echoes long gone. Back at my impromptu camp in the largest salt box, I powered the recorder with my generator. I had a wild idea: to play the restoring hymns back into the very space where they were last sung, to awaken them anew. As dusk fell, I began with the woman's voice, her phrase hanging in the air, fragile yet potent. The effect was instantaneous and terrifying. The sounds of the outside world faded into an oppressive, suffocating stillness. I heard it. Not from the speakers, but from the very room itself. A shimmering afterimage of the hymn materialized, beautiful yet desolate. I was both captivated and horrified. Emboldened, I played the elder's dirge, and the temperature dropped further still, frost blooming on the glass. Shadows thickened, morphing into translucent figures. The brethren were there, their silent mouths moving in timeless song, utilizing my playback to fulfill their own spiritual attunement. I realized with dawning horror that Croft had not merely died. He had become the final unwanted note in their hymn. They sought to correct the dissonance of his living presence. The silence that enveloped me was not merely an absence. It was a consuming force. As my heartbeat and breath began to fade into nothingness, I understood the tragic truth of their hymns. They were sonic excavations meant to scrape away the noise of existence, not just to seek silence, but to become it. With a frantic lunge, I reached for the power strip. My movements slow, as if submerged in water. I fumbled, overwhelmed by the crescendo of the collective hum, a tone of perfect stillness that threatened to erase me. With a scream that went unheard, I yanked the plug, and the world crashed back into being. Sound exploded around me. The wind howled, the sea crashed, and the generator sputtered back to life. I collapsed to the floor, gasping, weeping in the chaotic beauty of existence. In the aftermath, I destroyed the hard drives and cast Cross Recorder into the unyielding sea, filing a report claiming the data was unrecoverable. But some silences, once heard, remain with you. Now, in the heart of the bustling city, I wear earplugs not to block out noise, but to guard against the intoxicating allure of that perfect quietude. Somewhere in the spaces between heartbeats, I can still hear them. The faint, beckoning edge of the hymns of the Stillwater Brethren. Their unfinished song echoing in the ether, always searching for a new voice to join their silent choir.